And so there's just some of the thoughts that we start to have in our own heads, and he might have them of me as well, which is, oh man, I do everything around here, and why she doesn't do anything at all, and she's just lazy. Um, but when we start to talk about these things openly, we start to notice where they come from. And until I met Andre, I wasn't really aware of. I kind of leave little piles of things to do around the house. It's not necessarily big piles or chaotic piles, but there are some piles for myself to get back to. And when I grew up in a quite a wealthy household. It was a 4,000 square foot home, and I could never find anyone. I felt alone. Um, and I've been in houses where people tidy everything up so it's perfect, and you don't know if you really want to like live in it. So for me, those piles really are an indicator of life to me. So are lights being turned on. And that's another thing for Andre. He's like, just turn off the lights. I'm like, no, I need light A to see and B to feel like there's life in the house. So when I was able to get at that need of life, of having other people around me, of this sense of stuff happening rather than this cold, clinical, perfectionistic, cleanly OCD sense, I think you kind of relaxed around that a bit, didn't you?
Yeah, like having the reason behind the way you operate, right? Um, this need for connection, this need to be assured that life is here, that the
Yeah.
space is lived in, right? And because I can relate to that, I can connect to that because that's a human innate need. Because I can feel that within myself as well. Then it created more spaciousness and flexibility within my realm, right? My saboteur and my awareness now had a reason of why these things are here, rather than project a judgment and assumption of what she's doing. Where I'm thinking I'm blaming Summer for making me feel unease and not creating space or peace in my space. I now have a reason why things are done the way they're being done, which creates more compassion and more grace and more patience with that, right? So it's so important to be able to talk about these things because growing up, like conflict is avoided and we don't have real conversations like this. And so I will hold it inside and then feel resentful. And the resentment would build up and it would begin to leak in different ways, like giving my ex girlfriend the silent treatment, or I randomly would blow up in bursts of anger, right? And so it's like something's off because it's already coming out. Like I can only do so much, right? Holding a beach ball underneath the water. Like I'm gonna eventually tire, right? There's days where I don't have much willpower, and it's gonna leak out, right? My true intentions are gonna leak out. So it's actually healthy to speak in a way of like, how do I speak these core negative images? Well, that's where conscious communication comes in. That's where I can own my judgments. Like I nowadays, like when I converse with Summer, I preface I judge or I project, right? And that's just an indicator that I'm judging. I'm owning that. It's not true. It's my judgment or my projection of what's happening, right? And Summer knows that to not take offense to it, right? Instead of me saying, you're so disorganized. Well, I say, well, babe, I judge that you got a lot of stuff out there and you tend to stay there for a while, right? I mean, that's a judgment, right? A while. But at least it's a way forward to start having those conversations to figure out, the awareness of it. Like, for example, I'm so like on it in terms of cleaning. I remember you taking an item out of the freezer to defrost it while you were on a call. I could have communicated with you, I believe, but I just decided to put that back into the freezer. And then you came back to the kitchen. You were wondering where's this item, and because I didn't communicate with you, and I also projected that you left this out, right? That you were being lazy or disorganized or just not unaware. I had those thoughts going on in my head, so it's so healthy to be able to speak that out.
Right. We went out for dinner instead because you put it back in the freezer. Oh, that's hilarious. So curious if anyone listening has some core negative images about their boss, their mother, their whatever, or whoever. You don't have to say who it is, but what you think of other people. And we can kind of guess some other needs around that. Hyperachiever restless. For me, when Andre is so busy, what do I actually think in my head? I actually haven't thought about this before. Um,
Well, this is going to be juicy.
because I I'm aware of a lot of why you do it, right? Um, of the Asian work culture, the necessity to get ahead, especially from an immigrant family, right? It was so important for that to happen. But in my world, when I see burnout, adrenal fatigue, people who are just working themselves into heart attacks and whatever, I think to myself, oh man, like, can't you get over our cultural indoctrination? Like, why are you such a copycat? Why can't you find your own freedom or your own sovereignty? Why can't you think for yourself? Might be another one. Um, yeah, why can't you trust that who you are is enough to show up in the work that you're doing? Because and part of me is like, oh, you have so much experience and so much background, and um because another thing, Andre likes to take course after course after course after course, which actually comes through with a lot of really juicy information and insight that I kind of get secondhand in a way, um, which is extremely valuable to see all the different things going on in the world and who's teaching what and all of that stuff at the same time. Um, it can be overloading for me, and sometimes for him too. He can get overwhelmed and therefore scattered as well. So lack of focus is another judgment that I might have.
Hmm. Hmm. And so I have a question for you.
I can't
Around,
hear you.
can you hear me right now?
There you go. That's better.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a question for you in regards to, like, let's say someone is projecting their enemy images onto someone, right? Um, how would we know that that's a judgment, that's a projection of that person, or there's some truth to it?
Oh, how do you know? Well, I can ask you. Is there
Yeah.
some truth to it for you?
Truth about what? Which enemy image?
Let's say you're restless when you're busy, you're taking on lots of courses, that it might overwhelm you, that you maybe don't trust yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
This is where triggers, like if I judge him and he's done some of his own work, he can go, yeah, some of this is true for me. And if there isn't any resonance to Andre, then it's entirely mine. And for me, what part of it's mine is, why does it irritate me so much? Partly because I am not as organized. I don't necessarily take in other people's information in the same way. I kind of take it in a different way. Part of my judgment is this weird expectation that I expect him to be like me. And why would I want that? But there's an expectation that, and I think we all have it in a way, we expect other people to think and feel like we do. We're all narcissists on some level. And so I think that's a little bit of my narcissist in there. It's like, could you be more like me? Because then I'd feel more comfortable. So it's about me trying to get out of my discomfort by changing you. And I think people do that in relationship a lot. They get into stuff, they love their differences, and then once they're in a relationship, they want to change them because they're feeling uncomfortable and they don't know what to do with the discomfort in their own body and they don't know how to communicate it. So for me, I like quality time. I like to spend time together where he's not preoccupied with the things that he's doing. And I also know, or you can speak to that, Andre, that that's actually a need of yours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all those needs on the needs list is a need that I yearn to have, right? It's what makes me human. And let's say someone is like, projecting onto me that, let's say like, yeah, like you're taking all this stuff and you don't trust yourself, right? Just immediately direct feedback, right? And it's easy for me to say that's a judgment, right? It is a judgment, though. How do I know it's true for me, right? And it takes some space and time for me to realize to myself, yeah, maybe I don't trust myself, right? And that's just for me to get connected to my inner resonance to know whether or not this is true. Versus, let's say, just taking that person and believing them, even though I think I trust myself, right? So there's a difference here. Is that I got to check in with myself to say, is that true? And sometimes some people might say, well, Dre, you know what? Um, you do this because you want to get this piece of paper to go through the door and start working with high level executives to feel worthy. I might be like, well, not so much. No, no. I just want to be more proficient and trust myself, right? That's another someone's judgment. Their judgment of me, why I take these courses, is to um, get my foot in the door with the corporate world, let's say, right? To them, that's a judgment, but to me, that doesn't resonate with me. You see that?
Yeah.
So, two different judgments. How do I know what's true? Is I got to connect with my inner resonance of like, hmm, okay, and also where is this coming from too? Because the one thing I value is direct, honest, love, and feedback, and I value feedback and judgments from those that know me for a long time, have seen me over a period of months and years and seen how I operate. And they can
Mm.
point to examples of how I showed up, right? Versus meeting me for the first time and automatically stereotyping me. So it's so critical to be in an environment, in a community where I continue to show up and we're sacred mirrors for each other, where feedback can be presented in a way that has weight to it. Okay. Where I go from this is the humility to be able to own some of those judgments so that I can improve, right? I can't see my blind spots, though I'm sure a lot of parts of myself don't want to be seen because it wants to protect me. It's a strategy that I've used where, hey, I don't want this to be exposed because it could be an ego death, right? I would need to change, right? Or what is it? What does it make me feel or think of? Maybe I'm less than. I have these judgments of myself, right? If I were to admit that I'm not this, but actually I am this, because let's say 50 people tell me that I don't trust myself. Okay. If 50 people told me I don't trust myself, there might be something there that's truthful. So it's so key and important to have a period of time, a bigger sample data, as well as the number of people saying that type of feedback, because I can be in my head and be like, nope, 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 and create my own view of myself. And someone told me about this guy who's a former CIA agent, and I heard it from Marco, we were staying with, saying that it's actually wise to know how other people are viewing the world from their own perspective, rather than thinking that everybody's viewing it from my perspective of the world. And that's very limiting. And that can also put me in a place that's, let's say, not savory, right? Because I don't know actually what's really going on in my world when I'm not looking and putting my shoes in other people.
Yeah, I love that idea of the CIA agents, right?